In the Trenches with ryanroxie.
Hello. Ryan here, and welcome to another episode of In the Trenches, a live stream episode, and not just a live stream episode, a duo podcast. The first time it's ever been done in the history of podcasts. I am teaming up because my guest today, I'm his guest. So would you please welcome to live stream In the Trenches, Mr. Todd Kerns.
Hey. And will you please welcome my guest, Todd Dammit Kerns talks to ryanroxie.
There you go.
Brought to you by Ginsu Knives. I don't know.
Wow, you got a sponsor? All right, I'll take it. Already your show kicks our ass. You have a sponsor.
Yeah, hard. I got Tim Hortons. I'm ready to go, as you can see.
And I've got a pina colada. I'm ready to go.
I think you win. Well, it's the time difference.
Because I told you right before we went on the air, my first question out of the gate was, growing up, how close did you live to a Tim Hortons? Because you are the Great White Hope. You are Canada's finest. You are Todd Kerns. How close was it to a Tim Hortons?
I was just going to comment on how healthy and tanned you look, and how I'm not Caucasian. I'm pink. I always tell people I'm like a White Walker, but with slight sun overtones.
It's a nice blend with the background, because it's almost like we're doing this in black and white. It's almost really like a 1920s film.
Exactly, like Nosferatu or something. Actually, I grew up in a tiny little town. So Tim Hortons. Well, the funny thing is, there's such a Canadiana that has happened in the past 20 to 25 years, where things like poutine and Tim Hortons have become such a signified part of Canada. Whereas when I was a kid, it'd be the same thing as saying you're from California and like coming up with every possible cliche about California. But for me, it was kind of like
the whole Canada.
Exactly. Yeah. I grew up in a small town far from everything, and we probably didn't even know what Tim Hortons was unless we were traveling. Then we go through gas stations and be like, "Oh, the good stuff."
Ooh,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know what's funny now?
Saskatchewan.
Yeah, exactly. The big tip in the States is to go to Bed Bath & Beyond, and you can get Tim Hortons pods for your Keurig for some reason at Bed Bath & Beyond. I have no idea why.
Well, I've got my soundbite for this whole podcast, so I guess we could just wrap it up right now. Yes, because Todd Kerns talked about Tim Hortons capsules that you can pick up at Bed Bath & Beyond. Is that another one of your sponsors?
Brought to you by Tim Hortons and Bed Bath & Beyond. Yeah,
that would be a great sponsor to have.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah.
Well, you did grow up, because I was doing some research today, because I do love Canada, and playing with Alice, we've been lucky to play not just the ABC markets. We've played of Canada. We've gone deep into the alphabet. We've played played Medicine Hat. We've actually played there. We've played Moose Jaw. And we played Regina, rhymes with Is that where you're from? Is it Regina or close?
I come up from north of there, a town called Lanigan, Saskatchewan, and that's more closer to Saskatoon. So Saskatoon was the big city, though we would travel to Regina too. I saw Kiss, Judas Priest, bands like that in Regina at the Agridome, which I think is some agriculture and dome stuck together. I don't know how that worked, but
you had an Regina. I mean, I know the joke writes itself.
The city that rhymes with fun, they say, yeah.
There it is. The city that rhymes with fun. But you said it at very first. You said it very Canadian in the proper way. You said Regina or something. You said Regina.
No, it's Regina. It's
is.
Actually named after, I believe, some Regina would have been like the royal. But in typical, North American form, we take things like Notre Dame and we call it Notre Dame, or Regina just sort of turns into Regina, because that's just that's how we talk. I guess. I don't know. I might have just made that up. There's going to be a million things on the side here saying, it's called Regina because of this, Todd. You should know that.
You say Regina, I say Regina.
Exactly. But, let's call the whole thing off.
You sort of grew up, and you grew up in that area, and that's where, because I do like to start things off. I'm going to kick things off, all right? Because,
kick away.
Like I said, you're my guest today. And thank you, everybody. You know what? I haven't even acknowledged our amazing chat that's right there. If you are listening to it on all the visual platforms. I'm talking about Apple, and I'm talking about Spotify. I'm talking about Stitcher, all those. Pull your car over, get on your phone and get on to YouTube Live or Facebook Live and hit that subscribe button, because you are hanging out with a duo podcast version of two podcasts combining each other's talents, our strengths, our weaknesses. It's In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie and Todd Dammit Kerns Talks To, teaming up today. And my guest is Todd Kerns. So I get to go first with my question.
Go.
And this little question of like, let's go back to get forward.
I like it.
All right. I think Vic has he has an intro for that. You got that intro to put that up there, Vic?
This should be something.
He doesn't. Okay, never mind. So see, a lot of times if I'll say something like that, Vic will have. Oh, wow. Wow. All right. All right.
Leave Vic alone.
The thing I wanted to talk about was your first band. Growing up in that area, you formed a band called Age of Electric.
Yes.
And it was, now, am I right or am I wrong? Is there two sets of brothers in this band?
Yeah.
And if so, that's got to be some sort of Guinness Book of World Records. The year is 1989. We have obviously listened to the same albums at the same time, because we both of us, the bands I was in a band called Dad's Porno Mag. You're in a band called Age of Electric. We both loved Oasis, Definitely Maybe. I can tell.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But tell me how that band formed, and how did two sets of brothers end up starting this Age of Electric?
Well, I was in bands before that as a kid, and I was like the drummer from the Age of Electric ended up being a roadie for one of our bands, one of my bands, and we hit it off real fast and real tight. It was weird because we were younger. I was always the youngest guy in the band. So then this guy, Kurt, comes into my orbit, and we're around the same age, and we both loved the same bands. We both played the same kind of music. And it turns out his little brother plays guitar. My little brother's been playing bass. I was actually playing bass back then and singing. And then the idea was, well, I'll get my brother to play bass and I'll move over to the Paul Stanley position of rhythm guitar, lead vocals. And then it literally just kind of happened like that. It was fairly painless. Just kind of like, it seemed obvious, like we should do this.
And then this band itself did quite well in Canada. I mean, I'm seeing next to the name Juno, which is nice awards. It's basically the Grammys of Canada. Right. And
nominated. We never won it. But hey,
just
I'll
to be
take
there.
It. Yeah. Exactly. I sat next to Mark Messier from the New York Rangers and Shania Twain at the Junos, and I thought, oh, okay, I've arrived. And
that was my first hockey game. Was Mark Messier in New York Rangers playing the LA Kings, Madison Square Garden. Wow. Great.
I saw Mark back in the Edmonton Oilers days, back when Gretzky and those guys. Those are crazy times. But we digress.
Gretzky rings a bell.
Yeah.
I live in Sweden. It's all about hockey here.
I know.
Are you a sports guy? Does it shock you that hockey guy?
I'm a hockey guy, and this is actually, if I may parlay into the next part of this, is to me is living in Vegas and knowing what a Raiders fan you are. I'm actually very curious to hear your take on. I mean, I drive down the I-15 into the into the city, and the stadium is just this. At one point you're thinking, where are they going to put a stadium? And there you go. Look at that. Ouch. Does that hurt, Ryan? Does that hurt to see that?
It gives me so much joy. It gives me so much joy. You don't understand, because people have been asking me, aren't you so bummed the Raiders are leaving Oakland? It's like, no, they've left Oakland. I grew up in Northern California, right?
Sure.
And it's great because now it just became your show and you're interviewing me. See how that happened? See people in the chat? You see that little switcheroo without even knowing?
Yeah, exactly. No, I've been thinking of this a lot. Ever since we got the Raiders, I thought, I got to talk to Roxie about this. And here we are. Now it's happening.
Well, here we are. I'll tell you the exact story. Because when it first started happening, all the rumors of it were you going to be bummed if they move out of it? Because at that point, they could have moved to either, I think San Diego was Los Angeles, going back to LA was an option. Even San Antonio, Texas was an option. But Las Vegas, they settled on because, what Why shouldn't you have a professional football team where the most, betting goes off, sports betting in the world? There's nothing ever that could be fixed or rigged. I love it. And our players will never, ever be tempted with any of the temptations that Las Vegas gives us, ever.
Right.
I think that's to be true. I'm worried for all the other visiting teams that come in to say, hey, we're playing Vegas this week. Right on. we might go 8-0 in our home stadium. We might go undefeated. There's no doubt about it. But here's the thing. I was not bummed at all because I had grown up in Oakland, California, not in Oakland, but a little bit outside, a place called Pleasanton. But I was a fan of the 70s Raiders. Like you were a fan of Gretzky and Messier. My guys were Kenny Stabler. It was Marv Hubbard. It was Fred Biletnikoff, George Blanda, John Madden as a coach. So I grew up with those guys. And one of the reasons, apparently, I don't know if it's true or not, maybe subliminally, why I say Roxie 77. Well, one of the greatest Oakland Super Bowls that they won with that cool team, they won in January of 1977. I know it was a 76 season, but it was 1977 where they actually won the game. And so when they moved down to LA, I was down in LA doing my thing with music. And when they moved back, I was still supportive. So when they moved to Las Vegas now, I can only think of Road Warrior. What's it going to be like getting to the games on Sunday? It's going to be exactly like the movie Road Warrior, right? People are going to be, Vic, do you have a picture of Road Warrior for people just ready a game, just like people, and that guy with the guitar that's on the front of the new one, just playing this thing. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Your parking lot party. What do they call those?
The rock and roll parking lot that I have. Man, wait a second. Yeah. Did you do research on me as well?
Of course, I had to. Yeah, I mean, although to be honest, I'm pretty well versed in all things Ryan Roxie. I've been a supporter for a long time, and that's another thing I wanted to ask you about. I know I'm taking two questions, but
go ahead. You get a twofer, then I get one.
Because I didn't mean to just jump right ahead into the Raiders, which, to be honest, I'm really excited about that. Just give my 2 cents on the whole thing. Is because living in Las Vegas, I've been here almost 15 years, as hard as that is to believe. But when you travel as much as we do, it's always kind of like my house is where my TV and my bed are and some stuff.
You've been there for 15. I've been in Sweden for 15 almost.
That's amazing.
Like literally, that's we moved. Did we both move out of LA at the same time?
Probably.
Or were you living in LA?
I was in Vancouver, but I've been in and out of LA many times. Yeah, so so I was pretty much in Canada and had that whole thing going on. So when I came here, it was sort of kind of random, and it wasn't really a move. It was kind of like I had some stuff going on here, and I was bouncing back and forth, and then all that other stuff kind of happened. But my point was going to be that in watching the Golden Knights happen here in Las Vegas, it was really fascinating to watch. Like, say, on Monday, no one even knew what hockey was. And then on Tuesday, that logo was everywhere. You know what I mean? Yeah. And by the end of that first season, I remember walking into this like supermarket to grab some whatever with my wife. And I looked around, I go, doesn't it feel like we're in Canada? Like, as you looked around and everywhere, everyone was wearing the logo and it was on everything. And I was just like, and it really sort of gave this sort of identity in a way, which I didn't really understand because I've always been a music guy. And I guess I always took for granted, and I've always taken it for granted because I'm not sure about Sweden, but in Canada, hockey is everywhere. Like it's on.
Oh, Sweden is, outside of Canada, the second most popular place where the most popular players come from, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Sweden, because we're always winning those world championships. We're always winning the world champions in the trenches, turned to on the bench. It's a sports show now. Yeah. I like it.
But no, I think it's really interesting to me because it's like ever since I moved to the States, it's been something I have to seek out. I remember we were in Los Angeles recording, and it was like the playoffs were happening and the Kings were in the playoffs. I don't remember what year this was or whatever was going on. We just decided, Fitz and I, our drummer, who's also Canadian, and it was like, Brent Fitz. Yeah. So we were like, let's just go get something to eat. Let's just go to a sports bar so we can watch the game. So we walk into a sports bar. I don't know where it was or where in LA, but it was just like a million TVs and every cricket, anything you could imagine was on TV except hockey. And we're like, dude, the Kings are in the playoffs and you don't have a hockey game going on here? He goes, oh, click. turns it over. Like, seriously? But it's the kind of thing you have to kind of seek out if you really want.
There was a time, a very short, brief time when I guess it was Gretzky was on the Kings. Who else was the guy? It was when the LA Kings had
Marty
changed their color.
McSorley, all that. Luke
McSorley was
Robitaille,
on.
yeah.
Robitaille, of course.
Yeah.
But they were all on that team. The team had changed its colors to a bit more of black and silver.
Yeah.
And it got in Ricky Rackman.
They used to have the Lakers colors. Yeah.
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
But Ricky Rackman was like spearheading this hockey movement. I remember that. Yeah. And Ricky Rackman of Cat House fame, folks, for those of you keeping score at home. And then so for a brief time, hockey was really in vogue and very rock and roll. I tell you, the first hockey game I ever went to was when my band I was in called Electric Angels. We had moved from Los Angeles in the late 80s when everybody was migrating to LA. We couldn't get arrested there. We had played pretty much we've opened up for every band that imaginable, all the cool ones. At least I thought that we could go there. Oh, wow. There it is. There's a nice picture. Yeah, well, look at that. And Electric Angels, we were playing. Well, that's after we were signed, but as you can see, the hair remains the same. But
I like it. That should be the title of your book.
The hair remains the same. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. So from the late 80s, we moved to New York City. My first sporting event ever to go to was at Madison Square Garden. Seeing the Kings play the Rangers, and it was awesome. Ty Domi was like beating everybody up at that point.
As he does.
Really cool. I saw so many great things at the Garden. I was able to see, I don't know if you're into NBA. I do love the fact that we've become a little bit of a sports show, folks. This is sort of
people don't know me as a sports guy, but I actually am a great appreciator of the NBA. And I lived in Vancouver. We had a basketball team when the Raptors happened in Toronto. Vancouver got a team called the Grizzlies, which is now in, I think, Arizona. I'm not sure where they moved to, but anyway,
they did move around. But they used to have that big white dude. It was
big white dude.
Yeah, that was what they called him.
I can't remember what they called him. Yeah,
big white dude. I think that was it. I really think that might have been it.
I used to go to games. All the time. I would go with they used to shoot the Chris Isaak show up there. Remember when Chris Isaak had a TV show?
Oh, so no, I did not. No.
He had a TV show, and they shot it in Vancouver. And I would go, and I didn't go with them. We just happened to be in these same.
Is Chris Isaak Canadian?
No, he's not. No, he's down south somewhere. I think. I'm not sure.
He just looks like someone that's always surrounded by models because of that one video.
I know,
right?
Like,
that
he should always
black and white.
The Wicked Game video there with his whole life is in black and white, surrounded by supermodels. And champagne for some reason.
Damn it! That's where we messed up. We're not recording this in black. You're halfway there with your complexion and your hair,
black and pink. Yeah. But I was going to say, no, I think for Vegas, I think it's really, really exciting because I think, there was a time where everybody thought like Vegas having major league sports teams just didn't make sense. Now it's like, I assure you that there's lots of talk about a baseball team and lots of talk about an NBA team. And I hope it all happens because I think this city has proven, we just happened to luck out and have this hockey team that went all the way in the very first season of its existence, all the way to the final round.
They weren't moved from somewhere else. They came. No. They were an expansion team. That just
brand new expansion team. Wow. So, which I think is the interesting thing about the Raiders is we kind of thought, well, it'd be interesting if it was the Las Vegas whatever, like a brand new team. But the fact that it's the Raiders, it's very, very interesting to see. To witness this happen, so I'm excited.
LV Raiders, I'm all on board with that. See, the Golden Knights, I can't. Is there's too many things with that could be nefarious associated with Vegas with the word golden.
Sure.
Shower.
Well, I never thought of that. Yeah,
and it could either be golden, showers or boogie nights. You put Golden Knights together, and
it has some nefarious overtones for sure. But you should go to a game here. I mean, it's like I've only been to a few, but I'm waiting for anybody who's actually only ever seen games at T-Mobile here in Las Vegas. I want them to go see a game in Detroit or like Boston, like the old school, like original six teams where it's a hockey game. You go in there, like back in the day, you could smoke in there and you'd like throw your keys at the ref, and now it's like And then in Vegas, it's like this big production, pyro and like stuff going off, and celebrities are showing up. So it's a whole next level thing.
Here's a good question that will lead me into back to music, folks. All right, don't give up on us in the chat.
Yeah,
we're going to come off sports eventually.
I've exhausted my sports knowledge at this point.
Not yet, though. We're going to dive right into the trenches, or
yeah, exactly.
Dammit talk to at one point, because you are folks listening to a duo podcast. First time I think it's ever happened in the history of podcasts where I myself, Ryan Roxie, in the trenches, have teamed up with Todd Dammit Kerns, and we are combining both our podcasts together. So if you like it, just subscribe down there at the corner right now, and we appreciate you showing up right now. And I'm talking about these arenas. We're talking sports, and of course, I want to know, have you, as a musician, whether it's in Canada or whether it's across the states, been able to play any of your bucket list arenas with the bands that you've been in? And which one was it?
A bunch of them, actually. So
really?
In 97, the Age of Electric, we did Maple Leaf Gardens in Toronto, which is holy ground. You know what I mean? So that was, hey, look at, there we are. That's from probably 2017. But we did a.
I was going to say Maple Leaf Gardens doesn't look that big. It looks more like a.
No, yeah, that's probably about as much room as Bush gave us on the stage, mind you.
Oh, you played with Bush. Nice.
It was Bush and Veruca Salt, who were very happening at the
Veruca
time.
Salt.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They were the best. Yeah. And yeah.
Bob Rock produced.
Right? Yeah. Bob Rock. Yeah, he did.
Did we just say at the same time?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, Bob Rock was part of the reason that Age of Electric got signed or got anything, because we kind of were a band from the middle of the country running around all over Canada. And then Bob Rock saw us in Vancouver and was like, I want to record you guys. And we were like, us? That kind of thing of like, and so we moved out to Vancouver, and that's when we sort of really became serious about like pursuing a career. And Bob was doing Keep the Faith by Bon Jovi at the exact same time as recording us. And the bass player on that would have been 91, 92, I think. 92 by the time we finally got out there.
Wow.
So he
recorded you guys.
Yeah, he was working on this Bon Jovi Keep the Faith record. The record where John cut his hair was a big deal at the time. And then
we all know the records that people cut their hair.
Exactly.
1984, Eddie Van Halen cut his hair, and the world changed for me,
exactly.
Right? It was like, he played keyboards and he cut his hair?
I know.
Fucking dude, what's up?
I know. It's like when you watch, my hair is...
That's when you start growing your hair, I think.
This is... Wouldn't it be funny if I just like was Jean-Luc Picard under this, just like hung it up? But it's funny when you look back on those bands like Queen and all that. You look at like the era of Queen, and they all had long hair, and then 10 years later,
wasn't it Jazz where he cut his head? Where he cut
I think so. Yeah,
he didn't cut his head. He cut.
Don't cut your head. Whatever you do, don't cut your. But Roger too. Roger was like, and John Deacon too. They all went short, and Brian has always had the same hair. It's different color now, but it's always had the same hair. Yeah. But what was I saying? Oh yeah, so Bob brought us out to Vancouver, and I know you've had some history with Bob. You worked on the Tal Bachman record, or I'm sorry, in Canada, Tal Bachman.
Well, yeah.
Bachman out there.
All right, yeah. Well, the guy that had that song,
and you're uncredited somehow.
The guy
how
in the
are you? Yeah, exactly.
Okay, here we go.
She's so high above me.
That's the song. I mean, I could play it for you right now, not just because I haven't heard it 500 times today.
yeah, exactly.
Peloton commercial or something. It caused all that. It made a resurgence with all that stuff with the Peloton commercial. But it is cool. I did not know this. Out of all my crack research that the In the Trenches group does. By the way, I was the only one that did the research on this. The only one that actually contributed to the script this week. That's sort of a slam to my In the Trenches script crew, because I did invite them. Ouch. But honestly, it's okay, because I enjoy doing the research on you, Todd. But I did not catch
the fact that it's a one sheet. It's not.
No, trust me. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff.
Oh wow.
On this iPad. But Vic, our producer, always does a stellar job at finding out all the overlays and stuff. Let's see if you can find one for Tal Bachman, because the thing is, Bob Rock produced the Tal Bachman album. Bob Rock worked with yourself, with Age of Electric as well, and recorded it. My experience with him didn't happen until a couple of years later, but I found the same thing. He does have that I don't know what it is with really high level producers, but they have that X factor where they can hear something. They can hear something that we don't hear, and then takes it to the next level. And I remember, because I didn't even think that song "She's So High" was the best song on the album. I thought Tal had some better songs on there, but then again, we were all living in Hawaii, enjoying the experience. It wasn't.
He was already in Hawaii by that point.
Oh yeah, we were
in
Maui.
Where is that?
In Maui. We recorded, we were the first band to record out of Bob Rock's studio in Maui. So I had been to that studio that I think you recorded at, because that's where I met, during that whole era of Tal Bachman, I met Bryan Adams, guitar player, who was
Keith
working
Scott.
around. Yes. Really amazing
Great
guitar player.
Yeah.
And you probably worked with him as well. You're kind of Canadian royalty up there.
Well,
right?
People say things like that, but I don't feel like that, but I appreciate that. Thank you. I don't really know Keith at all. I've met Brian on a few occasions, but Bryan Adams, sorry. I'm all first name basis here. Brian, I'm dropping names. Watch your feet.
Well, dude, I don't know if it's Bryan Adams. I don't know if it's Brian May. You're just dropping everything with a B.
Exactly. I know a lot of Bryans.
I need a bartender. Can I get some more?
It's funny though, because Bob was a very intense guy. Like when I worked with him, he was doing "Keep the Faith," and then directly after, it was that Karabi Motley Crue record, like boom, and it was like,
wow.
And he was, he'd come off of, I guess, the Black Album and Feel Good, were his big sort of, at that time, his big like boom, this is Bob Rock, and Vancouver was on fire, dude. Like Bruce Fairbairn, when I was in the studio there, Bruce Fairbairn was doing "Get a Grip."
Another
with
amazing big producer, yeah.
Bruce is no longer with us, but like that studio was doing like Aerosmith, AC/DC with Mike Fraser, and then like Bon Jovi and Motley Crue, and that era, Poison, all those bands that were killing it back in that 80s era were just always in Vancouver. So by the time we got to Vancouver, it just started to kind of like a year later, it was that it kind of
you
passed.
kind of were living in the Los Angeles, the Cult as well. I know that Bob worked with them on. Not after, it was after Electric. It was the
Sonic Temple.
Sonic Temple, you're right.
And Matt Sorum did that tour, yeah.
That is true. Yeah. The thing is, Canada, Vancouver is sort of like the Los Angeles of Canada. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it has
Toronto's
elements of
the
like
New York City.
It is,
and then I would say Vancouver a little bit like the LA of it.
It's like LA mixed with Seattle. I always say it kind of feels like, because of the weather, you know what I mean? But
absolutely.
And by the time I got to Vancouver, the Seattle impression was massive, because that alternative thing really started to kind of turn over by that point, and we became like Seattle Junior in a sense. You know what I mean?
Which brings us back to Bob Rock producing Veruca Salt, who you guys opened for at one of your bucket list arenas. So you like the way that all ties in like a nice little bow?
That's very good, very good. That's
almost
why
it was scripted.
Right now we're in the trenches. It's no longer Todd Kerns talks to. But the other thing I was going to say, to complete your thought though, is we did an Ozzy Osbourne tour with Slash, and every one was like the San Jose arena, Nashville arena. And it was so cool standing there playing, because everyone has a Canadian flag, an American flag and a Canadian flag. And we get up there and be like, I wouldn't really think about it. And then every once in a while I get up for sound check and I go, oh my God, I've watched this on TV 1,000 times. You just go, you're in some state of exhaustion and jet lag. And then you get there and you're like, oh wow, this is a trip, So yeah, I've been very fortunate to do a bunch of that. There's still a number of them I'd like to do, but we'll see.
My bucket list arena tour was fulfilled like 10 times over by being able to be that, getting on that Motley Crue, Alice
the
Cooper.
Palomino Club.
Well, maybe it was the Palomino Club. That is a nice club. Do not disparage that club there.
Men's night out. With Danger.
It was Danger. So
Ted
good they had to name it twice. So
dangerous they had to name it twice.
That's true. But like when Alice Cooper, and again, you think you can not drop names? Check this name drop. When we were doing the Motley Crue final tour with Alice Cooper and the Raskins opening up,
wow.
There you go. I'm dropping them all today. There's no prisoners. The thing is, we got to play every arena that had a basketball team. So wherever we go, it would be, oh man, we're in Houston. Oh, that's where the Rockets play. Totally. Oh man, we're in in Indianapolis. Okay, that's where the Pacers play. And then of course that was where I got to play Madison Square Garden. That was my
Yeah,
first
I've never
and only
done
time.
Madison Square Gardens. As a Kiss fan and all that kind of stuff, like Madison Square Gardens is like, you got to play there. Yeah. But I've never done it yet. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
so
you done Staples Center as well, have you?
no, it did not. Here's the thing.
Okay.
Here's the little story about that. Because the way the tour routing worked out, the last show, well, the last sort of supposedly contracted show of Motley Crue was supposed to be New Year's Eve at the Staples Center.
Right.
And every New Year's Eve, Alice Cooper goes to Hawaii, and we have like a little, like his manager Shep Gordon puts on this big party, and we basically.
Is that in Kauai?
It's in Maui, but it's in Maui, and Bob Rock is in the band actually.
Oh, wow.
So there you go. But
Steven Tyler, does he come out?
Steven Tyler, I got to. So here's the trade-off. I really wanted to play Staples Center. I really wanted to play LA Forum. I've never been able to. I've been to the LA Forum. I've literally passed out at the Forum Club multiple times. I've picked up on. I've asked Vanity for her home phone number in front of Nikki Sixx on the Girls tour in the Los Angeles Forum Club. And I'm sure my wife's going to listen to that and go, "Really? You did that? You didn't?"
Yeah.
But yes, I did. I didn't get to play the LA Forum, so I was like, "Well, it because all the concerts shifted over to Staples Center."
Right.
Well, that one show, we all went to Maui, and the Struts ended up opening that last show for Motley Crue at Staples Center. So I've yet to play Staples Center, but that New Year's Eve, I was able to play Walk This Way, Sweet Emotion, Jaded, and a number of other songs with bassist Chuck Garrick.
No way. Wow.
Steven Tyler.
Wow.
So honestly, Steven Tyler, I was about maybe 10 inches away from, like big 10 inches away from like that one.
Well done.
Away from
Boys in the Attic.
Yeah. Felt like he was playing Dream On, just him and a piano, and I was like literally waiting to get on stage to play the other songs with him, literally like a foot away, and it was like he sang it spot on. So that, the trade-off was great. And I also got to play Bob Seger's, what's the song that Bob Seger does? Just name any song.
I was going to say there's a catalog of songs. Yeah.
The old time rock and roll.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah.
Where the Scientologist does the crazy dance in the song.
Yeah, I don't think he was a Scientologist back then, but okay, well,
was he? I don't know. He was looking for something. That dance is like
he was looking for his pants, I think.
It's a cry for help.
We got to play the Forum opening for Aerosmith, so that actually kind of was a bucket list for sure. And it wasn't long before that Michael Jackson had passed away, and he'd done all those rehearsals there and all that kind of stuff. So it was like it had this kind of weird vibe about it.
But play the Forum.
So we did the Forum, and it was like, Jim Carrey was there. It's one of those, that the LA thing is nuts.
Jim Carrey was at the New Year's Eve show.
There you go.
Maybe Jim Carrey's everywhere in our life.
And the full circle is he's Canadian. So there's that.
Maybe Jim Carrey's part of this podcast, this duo podcast right now.
He just
we don't
pops
even
up
know
in the next scene and starts talking.
No, but the kicker was I got to play the Bob Seger song "Old Time Rock and Roll" with Linda Carter, the
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Woman.
Wow.
With Steven Tyler on drums.
Amazing.
How many times can you say that Steven Tyler?
I think you win everything with that.
Well, you know what? Here's the icing on the cake, or the salt on the caramel, however you want to say it. Mick Fleetwood. I look over and I hear this percussion. Mick Fleetwood's on percussion.
What?
He just kind of comes and sits down and does percussion. Come on. That's my biggest name drop story. That's going to be my sound bite. I'm out. Thanks, man. What was my sound bite about you? We had
I think it was something to do with Tim Hortons at Bed Bath & Beyond. I think.
Bed Beyond. There you go.
Yeah. Oh. But I wanted to ask you. There you go. Bed Bath and way beyond. I wanted to ask you about so I didn't realize until I started looking at the actual dates. I know you've known Gilby all these years, but with Candy and all that, LA so you guys were doing gigs in '83. First of all, you were a kid, obviously. But
not so much, but that's yeah. I'm not on that photo, but thank you though for
yeah, you're not even in
looking
that
at-
version.
No, but it's okay. But you can put it back up, Vic, because honestly, it didn't matter because at that time, the reason why I got into the band,
there was a sale at the Burlington Coat Factory. Those leather coats went big.
I was Johnny Bravo. I'm telling you, I'm the Johnny Bravo of Los Angeles for that, because honestly, I looked exactly like that. Maybe not as good of a complexion as these guys because they look like little teen idols. But the thing is, I had the dyed black hair. I had all the, I had all the accoutrements. I had all the aesthetics. I had the black leather jacket from Burlington's. You're right. I think it was actually Wilson's House of Leather.
I don't think I could have afforded anything from Burlington. I think mine was probably either found or vintage store or whatever. Yeah, because we all kind of the same thing. I was going to say, because you and I have, what I've always appreciated about you is I think that sorry to cut off your story. I'm sure it was going to be a way better story than I was going to talk about. But
it was not a good story.
Of course it was. There's no bad stories. But no, I just think that the idea of like having a 1 foot in like rock and roll, hard rock, and then 1 foot in punk rock has always sort of been the way I kind of like try to do my thing. So I always hear your imprint on things like, say, The Eyes of Alice Cooper to me was sort of like to me was a giant return to that sort of tour de force. Oh, that was one of my favorite albums of that era.
Thank you, man. Well, it was one of my favorite haircuts as well. One of my favorite hair gels that I ever used. That's
funny. I don't remember you having that, but this would have been post dreads, right?
It was right after I cut off the dreads. So when you've had dreads for years, those aren't dreads. Those are actually braids. Yeah. I started out with the Bo Derek vibe,
right,
and then Carrie Kelly whispering sweet nothings into my ear on that photo. Which if you guys notice on that album cover, you put it back out again, folks. That's a Dad's Porno Mag album. We completely replicated the Rolling Stones Black and Blue album.
100%.
Like
that's exactly
to the font and everything.
100%.
So if you look, yeah, I wish Vic could put out the whole entire fold out because it has Stefan Adik on there. Do you have that? No. Okay.
Great lineup. Yeah. That's great.
I always ask Vic, I'm sorry, our producer, for things that he can't just create just to frustrate him.
There he is.
He is with us.
It's Jim Carrey. Now he's, ladies and gentlemen, Jim Carrey. But sorry, I don't want to cut off your because I was really very curious mostly about with Candy and of course into Electric Angels. What clubs are we talking about in 1983 in Los Angeles? Because this is like, by the time I got to LA, it was like 89, something like that. So it would have been like,
it was a little bit later. I kind of was in Candy right at the beginning of the hair metal scene. I joined like in around 84, 85.
Okay.
And but the club scene was a real cool eclectic scene in Los Angeles because you did have that punk rock vibe, but also you had a very rock and roll vibe that was starting to form. You had that Whiskey a Go-Go, you had the Roxie that were those staple, and the Troubadour that were staple rock clubs. But then you had all these alternative clubs like Scream. Dale Gloria was a promoter at Scream, or Janice that would do English Acid. And we would play at these, basically there would be like 5 bands that had your haircut and diaphanous complexion and Candy, or Electric Angels. And Electric Angels had a little bit more scarves. We got definitely more velvety and scarves after we
the gypsy rock thing happened.
Well, but see, we were early on it because we made our album in London, and we were able to go to London and sort of catch the fashion trend before that. But back in LA, we, like you said, this whole synergy of punk rock and rock and roll, and don't forget straight up pop. Growing up for me in Northern California, I listened to like AM radio that was straight ahead pop, and I would listen to ABBA, or I would listen to the Bee Gees right next to Aerosmith and Cheap Trick. So I'm not sure if it was the same sort of situation for you in Canada, if you had those sort of influence, but I think you did, because I definitely hear some pop overtones to your punk rock and sort of straight ahead
1,000%. I think that I know that 1,000 is doesn't work in the percentile game, but I absolutely
either does 110%. I'm giving it 110%.
So you can't even use that. But no,
sports references.
to this day, I'll go back and listen to, Get the Knack or any of those sort of like.
Get the Knack. It's such an underrated album. It's one of my favorite albums, folks. If you're listening to this right now, actually, if you're listening and you're watching me, sure, just subscribe first. That's what I want you to do. But then afterwards, not afterwards, because I want you to watch till the end. But but at one point in your evening or morning or late night,
day,
sort of Tim Hortons binge that you're on right now, I want you to go listen to Get the Knack, because that first album, Get the Knack, who's the drummer on that album? Because it's such an amazing
dude. He's the most underrated drummer there is.
Ainsley, I think. There's a new.
Okay. You know what? If there was only a machine that might have these kind of answers,
I don't know how to find this information out.
I should know this. I think it's Bruce. Mike Chapman did those records. I think he did like Blondie and a bunch of records like that. So
Mike Chapman produced The Sweet.
Exactly. Like, so he was like a very underrated, not underrated at all at the time. But when I go back and I listen to my favorite records, I always go, damn, I forgot how like great this sounds. And a lot of those bands kind of got, because by the time rock and roll, like hard rock came in and everybody wanted it to be louder and faster, we kind of like moved further away from the sort of pop elements that we kind of grew up and loved. Yet I still find myself like, busting out some vinyl and putting on, one of those records and being like you say, the Bee Gees, ABBA, bands like that. The guitar solo on My Sharona was epic, dude. Thank you, Roger, because I've been spending time on this tutorial on YouTube of this guy showing me this, that long solo.
Yeah, the unedited version.
And I've been just kind of like, it's the kind of guitar solos that I like, are these ones that are like a thought out. Like, it's not just kind of like a,
tell a story.
It really goes somewhere, I mean, I really was obsessed during this time. I went through this whole period of going over Neil Giraldo guitar solos, which I think he's. Yeah.
Are you kidding me? That Neil's one of my favorite guitar. If I say my favorite guitar players of all time, obviously Brian May is always gets 100%. The number one accolades. But then I go for parts guys. I go for guys that write great parts, and I'm talking obviously Rick Nielsen. I love.
Absolutely.
Steve Stevens writes great parts, but Neil Giraldo is always in my. Neil Giraldo and Elliot Easton from the Cars.
Elliot Easton,
two of my favorite guys, right?
It's funny because Slash, when you know Slash, he's Slash. Yeah, when you know Slash, like I know Slash. But I mean, like, I just lived with the guy for the past 10 years, and it's sort of like his window of like, he doesn't really open up a lot. Like, he doesn't really kind of like go, you know what, I really liked, like he would never have a conversation about ABBA or Bee Gees. It would just be like, he just wouldn't get involved in that. He wouldn't really, we could talk about it around him, but he would never go like, that one song was great. He just wouldn't. But one day he just kind of busted out. The Elusive Second Knack album is also very good.
Underrated. Little Girls Understand. But I know the album title. I know you couldn't release that record in 2020. Of course not. But you know what? I had Kip
even
Winger
My Sharona for that matter.
Even the Beatles. She was just 17. Well, she's underage. You're canceled.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. What was I saying?
You were talking about it when you know Slash. The way.
Yeah. No, it's funny because like out of nowhere one day he goes, you know what album was really big for me? The first Cars album. And I went like, it just seemed like, but he goes, but then of course I go, well, yeah, Elliot's like one of the most badass guitar players there is. As far as like composition and chops, it's like country chops and stuff like that. It's nuts. It's like, he's really underrated.
You know what's funny? After all these years, and I'm going to, folks in the chat, get ready for some name dropping.
Here we go.
Here we go, boy. It's going to be another round, but I got to actually play a gig with Elliot Easton. I was so excited. I was a little bit nervous, but this and that. At the end of the day, it was a little bit like hanging out with Larry David. He's a little Larry David of rock and roll.
I love that.
He was complaining a little bit about his back. He was like, it was like something, but at the same time, when we did the gig together, because it was for a benefit show, it was up in Seattle, and
wow.
It was who's Taylor Hawkins.
Oh, sure, yeah.
was
Foo
playing
Fighters.
drums on it, and a bunch of like rad ass musicians where everyone was coming from this, there, and that. We had a jam the night before, and I just remember Elliot Easton. He was just like so spot on, and all those little parts, all those little intricacies. If you can play the way that he does, clean, because he does it with a really clean tone.
Oh, yeah,
That's
totally.
like more impressive. And getting back to the guitarist in the Knack and that solo of My Sharona, that's a relatively clean tone that he plays
It is,
that
yeah.
memorable solo out of. So, yeah.
Well, that's why like, when you go to Nashville or something like that and you watch guys randomly on Main Street or on Broadway there, they'll just be like playing in some corner like restaurant, and you'll just have your mind blown by the guitar player. Like, who is this guy? And he's playing for tips.
What is this Nashville you speak of?
Yeah. All I know is I'm not qualified to live there or play there, so I just kind of like.
I think you have to definitely have a GIT degree at this point to.
It's something. I think that those are some of those guys are guys who've been sitting on a porch playing with their family. And you ever see those kind of bluegrass
eating
type
pork,
folks?
probably
or eating pork. Probably eating pork. Yeah. There he is. There he is. That'd be the father of the family. They're just kind of like hoe down. But I watch these guys like like people like playing banjo and mandolin and stuff like that, and they just throw down, and you're like, this is no joke. Like it's. But I've always been more impressed by like that sort of virtuosity that has sort of like a well thought out beginning, middle, and end, as opposed to it's in the key of A, and some guy just blows his load on just with a whammy bar and everything else. It's kind of like it's cool, but it just never really speaks to me the same way.
I love it. Well, I'm gonna the perfect segue that you made into this, Todd. Damn it, Kerns.
I don't
is
remember
that well, it was the whole leading into Slash.
Oh, okay.
Leading into how Slash and the Elliot Easton. I will tell my Slash story, and this is how I got a free flying V. I won a bet from Slash, and I won a bet because for some reason when we were recording for Snake Pit, we'd meet there every day at his place, and he came down one day. And he said, Roxie, I was talking about somebody, a little bit earlier in a conversation as a guitarist. He actually didn't even say that. He goes, I was talking about somebody. If you can guess who it was, I will, I'll get you a guitar. And I go, he goes, what kind of guitar you want? I go, I want a flying V, because I didn't have a flying V at that time.
Sure. Yeah.
And I don't know. And I said, wait a second. I need to know, was it an actor or was it a musician? He goes, it was a guitarist. I'll give you that much. And for whatever reason, I don't know where it came from, I just said Elliot Easton. And he looked at me. Oh my God, there he is. Great job, Vic.
Amazing.
So
he's a southpaw.
Slash looked at me in the eye like he was unbelievable. And his manager at the time, Tom Marr, was right there. He looked at Tom and he goes, did you fucking say anything? and Tom goes, I said nothing. And it literally came like one of those times where you just a name comes out of the ethos, and I just said Elliot Easton, and he goes, it was Elliot Easton. So
wow.
So Slash commissioned a guitar for me from a company called GMP that I was working with at the time.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
They made a I don't know if we can even find a picture of it. It's a pretty crazy looking guitar. It was a leopard sparkle.
I remember that one.
Sparkle Flying V GMP. I think I played it somewhere on the maybe that was the Brutal Planet tour or something like that. And that guitar is named Elliot. And I
there you go. There you go.
Thank you very much, Slash.
I saw the Cars play like that weird version with Rundgren singing, Todd Rundgren.
Yes.
I saw him here in Vegas, and it was great. Yeah, like I said, it was amazing to watch Elliot play those parts. Was the thing I got off on. So I know that they've done an actual reunion with Rick since then, but I never got to see that. I really wanted to see that, but when you play as much as we do, we miss a lot of shows. Yeah.
Well, I mean, your experience, because that is, I mean, I could go through all the other bands, honestly. Todd, I could go through Static and Stereo. You could tell me a lot of stories. I could go where we met through with Sin City Sinners.
Ooh, look at the haircut.
Look at that, man.
They want to make us a boy band.
Well, you know what? Everyone had a hairstylist back then.
Yeah.
Everyone knew a beautician.
This is easier. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. People always say like, oh, isn't dreads your easy? No, having dreadlocks back for me in the year, late 90s and early 2000s, it was the hardest haircut I've ever had. Dread maintenance.
That's a commitment, 100%.
It was a total commitment. It was.
Our drummer in the band had dreads, and it was a nightmare. I thought that's why I didn't get involved.
I could go through more Canadian classics like Michael Sweet that you played with, and you've always kind of
that's Michael Sweet. That's Michael Sweet from Stryper. Yeah.
What?
So I appeared in a couple of his videos, not that long ago either. Actually, yeah.
All
yeah.
right.
I never played with Michael, but he just randomly showed up one day and he calls me. He goes, I didn't really know Michael, so I just got a phone call from Michael Sweet going like, hey man, I'm coming to Vegas. I'm shooting a couple videos for this record I did. Would you be the bass player in the videos? And I'm like, of course, I'd love to. I loved Stryper and all that kind of stuff. And he's a wonderful man. So he just shows up and I played on it. And it was kind of fun. Yeah. So it's not some random Canadian Michael Sweet. I don't know if there is a Canadian Michael Sweet, but you never know.
There is. I thought it was. Okay. I had done a whole expose on Michael Sweet.
Yeah.
Folks in the chat, wait till next week. I'll have a great
Born in Moose Jaw. Yeah.
Our guest will be Michael Sweet on the In the Trenches podcast. But yes, so those of you listening on Apple or Spotify or any of the other audio platforms, you can make your way on over to YouTube Live or Facebook Live, because we are hanging out with, of course, Mr. Todd Kerns of our main event right now, because this will be the main event. We are here to talk about your connection, your sort of involvement, and how it came to be part of this band / featuring Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators. I'm going to break that down in another segment that I have, but I just want to know, how did you get into the band initially? Did it have something to do with your fellow Canadian friend and drummer and guitar player and bass player I've seen?
And Brent dancer, Fitz. Choreographer? Just kidding.
Brent Fitz? Did Brent reel you into the team, or how did the whole experience with Slash getting into the...
That's pretty much exactly how it happened. I had a band here in town. Again, none of my look at these characters.
Look at that band.
Look at that. Looks like, I bet you we could break into a mean dance of when you're a jet all the way from your first cigarette.
Hey guys, sorry. You can wear any color you want as long as it's black.
Exactly. Yeah. It makes laundry day a lot easier for on the road. But I was playing around town. I was doing just fine. I was, really enjoying myself. Sleeping in the same bed every night was nice. I wasn't on the road. I was just living in Vegas, playing in a house band and jamming with everybody and
that doing really. Sin City Sitters, right?
That was the Sinners, and we were doing really well. And I was buying a house and being a grown up, and kind of like there was a part of me that hadn't really given up on the idea of traveling or whatever. Oh my God, look at these characters. There's Brent. And we just decided to I just loved playing and jam with all these cool people. And then out of nowhere, Fitz calls me and goes, I was actually it's a funny story because my father was here. I was looking at a house and my father he came down because he's a grown up and I'm an idiot. So I was like, I'm going to buy a house, but I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So he comes down and he's a grown-ass man from Canada, and he's a fish out of water in Las Vegas, but he's one of those kind of fish out of water that doesn't matter. He's like 100% comfortable wherever he is and will engage with the waiter for 20 minutes about whatever, you know what I mean? So I was just sitting at a Chili's after we looked at this house that I eventually bought, and my phone rings and I pick it up and it's Brent Fitz, and he goes, hey, can you want to come jam tomorrow at Mates, in LA?
Rehearsal in Los Angeles where dreams come true. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's where I got the Alice Cooper gig.
I like that in your Wikipedia. There's a mention of Bobby from Mates, which I always
from Mates. There it is.
At, yeah. So the next day I was kind of like, yeah, and I was like literally a part of Slim Jim Phantom, George Lynch, Sylvain, anybody who came to town and be like, boom, let's go play. And I really sort of got a name for being the guy of just get Todd. He knows all those songs. It's kind of like, it was kind of a not true. Like, it's like there were certain things like the New York Dolls and and stuff like that. I knew all those songs, but then it was like George Lynch is coming to town. It's kind of like, okay, well, I'll sing. I'm not playing guitar with that guy. He's playing the guitar parts, right? That kind of thing. So
you're saying you might have been you were the Eric Dover of the LV of Las Vegas, because Eric Dover was that guy. We nabbed him for Glam Nation and eventually Alice Cooper, because not just because he's such a great vocalist in the first version of Slash's Snake Pit, not just because of his great work with Jellyfish and everything that he's done with his solo stuff as well, but I mean, he also knew all the words to every Bowie, Sweet, T-Rex song imaginable. So
it's bananas. And honestly, back, Eric was one of a very early guest for us. Oh wow! And we brought him there. Look at these. Is that Glam Nation?
Right. That is a version of Glam Nation right now. The two guys in front, I think, are radio contest winners, but I'm sure they're probably very big entrepreneurials. The guy in the back with his tongue out, I don't know who he is. I know that's Eric Singer on the left, and of course there it is. Look at that.
I thought that was EJ back there.
No, that's actually Stefan in the back. He's
there he is. Okay.
He's from Brooklyn. He's pretending that he's like, flipping people off in England, but he's, Britain.
Of course, yeah. That's the English style, yeah.
Yeah. But then there's Teddy Zigzag in that photo.
Of course.
So anyhow, I do want to hear how this rehearsal at Mates transforms into a gig.
I just got the call to come down and jam, and it really was sort of like, Fitz is a funny guy that way, because they already had somebody. They had a guy, and there was like a lineup. He like a few weeks earlier had sent me a text, and it just said, all it said was, Slash's new drummer is from Winnipeg. And I laughed my head off, because he's from Winnipeg, Canada. And I go, no way, that's awesome. But I was like, never was there a part of me that goes, can I be in the gig? Is there a place for me? I'm not that kind of guy. I was just sort of like, that's awesome, good for you. And then I had to go off and learn, Wasp songs for a Steve Riley jam or something, whatever the hell I was doing. And then so I get the call, and I looked at my father across the table, because my father was with me at the Chili's, and I go, you up for a trip to Los Angeles tomorrow? And he goes, I've never been to Los Angeles. And I go, that was decision enough. I had to kind of, okay. So it was funny.
I want to be friends with your dad all of a sudden. I mean, right out of the gate, when your dad says, when you want to take your dad on a band audition, that's cool.
It didn't, that's the thing, is it didn't feel like an audition. It just felt like, come jam. Like, it was very sort of put to me as like, and I know how Fitz operates. It was kind of like, once they see Todd and realize that it's in his DNA, because I think it's something to be said about showing up at an Alice Cooper audition. It's kind of like, if you're guys like me and you, it's sort of like, that's already in the DNA. Like, I grew up I was a kid staring at the back of $1 Billion Babies. I was terrified by that image of the band back then. I remember thinking like I've never seen so much hair in my life. Like, you were used to long-haired guys, but Neil Smith and all those guys were, what the? Yeah. So, but I mean, like, so the Appetite album especially is just like, I could sing you every song. I'll play all the guitar parts. I'll play the bass parts. I could probably play the drums, even though I'm not a great drummer. One of those records that I just took in, and just, it became religion from beginning to end. Use Your Illusions was so much more vast and so much more going on that, I kind of pick and choose what I kind of know. So when I went into the audition, when I went into the audition, I was sort of like, I didn't listen to anything. I didn't like go over anything. I just literally got in the car with my dad at like 8 a.m. So I was going to meet them at noon. Drove into LA, plugged in a P bass, and just played Night Train. All I remember playing was Night Train, and going like, and then like, it was sort of like Slash going, okay, so like, it was never sort of like a, welcome to the band, here's your gold watch, or like, it was kind of like, it was like, just sort of like,
what we're gonna do next.
It was just sort of like next week we're doing Jay Leno, The Tonight Show, all these different, and I was like, whoa. Meanwhile, I had a very full dance card in Las Vegas. I was like that. Yeah. I had a whole world going on here. So
I have the guys in Dawkins coming here, and I have to learn.
Pilson's going to kick my ass. Yeah, exactly. So I had to, that was kind of a heartbreaker for me. It was just kind of like, oh, I feel terrible. But like literally a week later, it was like Leno and blah blah. Hey, more black.
There you go. Hey, man. And
the Johnny Ramone T-shirt I'm wearing there, if you could see that.
Like, I think that 3/5 of the current lineup of the Slash band all does live in Vegas, right?
Yeah.
Because Frank, the other guitarist in the band, I've known Frank since he was a kid.
Yeah.
I really have. I literally a kid, and now he's like a grown man rocker, and he's
a bona fide rock star. Yeah.
Oh man, I remember watching you guys. I saw you at some sort of Swedish radio thing out here in Stockholm, and I saw the concert. I was really impressed with your punk rock version of what you did. You did a cover, a couple covers. You sang a cover. You fronted it for a little bit because Miles.
I usually do. Well, because Slash put up in 2010 the album that I joined to promote was it had multiple different vocalists, kind of like the Santana move. But I usually do the Lemmy one and the Iggy Pop one.
It was the Iggy Pop track. Yeah. Yes, that was great. But then the band broke into a song off the album that I recorded called "Ain't Life Grand."
Yeah,
with Slash. You did "Serial Killer" off that song, off that album, and I was like, this is so surreal to hear a song that I remember tracking that. I remember all the different versions that went into finding that album. And I don't know if Vic has the album cover of "Ain't Life Grand," but it was a really special album for me. Well, you never know. I gave him the perfect segue. I threw up a softball. I literally threw up a softball for Vic, and doesn't have. I know that he has. He definitely has the.
You're going to get the "Don't Be a Dick"
somewhere.
sign in a second.
Yeah, I know, it's coming. But
yeah, that was actually really fun because there you go, boom. I forget the name of that.
We don't know you see it. Get it off, please. Get off.
I forget the name of that artist, but the painting it's a real trip that you're like in that. The artist escapes me, but it's an amazing.
He's a famous artist, and I think someone in the chat will have that name real quick.
Now that's Matt Logg and Johnny Gaparic on that. Is that who that is?
Yeah, there's some pictures of that early lineup that we have. I want to show if Vic has that because at one point, folks, you are going to see me shirtless. You're going to see me and Slash both shirtless, which is quite a
a distinct shirt allergy was going around at that
This is a picture that was just taken in 2020. This is both of us. That I think is last month. Was it, Vic, that you just got that? No, might have been a little bit earlier than last month, but
wow,
maybe before the quarantine. But then there was another shot of us inside with now this shot kind of typifies what we spent the years playing with.
Where is that?
That's in, I believe that's at Sunset Sound, or it might be the China Club, one or the other. I'm doing. Can we go back to that picture real quick, Vic? Thanks. And obviously, you can tell the year it was because for all of us, we're wearing backwards baseball caps. At one point, it was cool to wear backwards baseball caps. Somewhere they did twist around the front.
And that's the thing where your dad would be like, the visor is to keep the sun under your eyes, right?
That's me on the left. And that's Mr. Johnny Gaparic, who's actually hanging out in Sweden these days. He's from Sweden. Amazing bass player. Yes.
Oh, he's a monster.
From Jönköping. And this is one of my favorite vocalists I've ever worked with ever. One of the most tremendous voices. It's Rod Jackson right there.
And if you can see there, Rod Jackson's wearing what we call the Canadian tuxedo.
Well, is it Canadian?
In the full
all denim. A full denim.
Yeah.
Well, obviously he would not be able to fit into Slash featuring Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators photo shoot because it wasn't black denim.
Well, yeah, I don't think that's not really a mandate like plan or anything. I was just sort of like,
really? Show me another publicity. I guarantee you'll all be in black.
Oh, I guarantee you. Well, currently,
what are you wearing right now? You're wearing black. I think
it's a Varvatos. Oh, look at that. Oh, there's two. Also,
that's Took. Okay, I want. Well, that's overflow. I do want to get into Took a bit because that is one of your.
But there's a blonde
projects.
guy. See, there's a blonde guy in the band. That was a real transition.
Wow.
But no, that was actually kind of the fun. One of the most fun things about the earlier version of playing with the Slash band is it was the first time Slash had really kind of consciously set out to go, I want to play Guns, I want to play Snake Pit, I want to play Velvet, and then we were supporting all the stuff from that 2010 solo album with multiple vocalists, and Miles obviously came in to carry those and sang everything else. But so it was really interesting for us for several years. We would go digging way into Ain't Life Grand and 5 O'Clock Somewhere, and really, like Serial Killer and all those songs. It was really fun to dig into those, because a lot of them
you can't find them on. It's really hard to find them on Spotify, because it comes and goes. Those albums, like they'll feature them for like maybe 6 months, and then it'll go away. So for those of you, I mean, obviously YouTube, you can get, maybe there's some high res version somewhere, but yeah, I mean, yeah, go download.
Those are great records. Great records, yeah.
But what album was it that you came into when you jumped into the band? Because you immediately started recording an album.
Well, no, we did in 2010. I joined. We were supporting that solo album that he'd done with all the multiple vocalists, which was crazy, because that immediately turned into, we're going to be doing the Golden Gods Awards, and Lemmy's coming down to jam. And you're like, what, Lemmy? Like I was not really there. Yeah, that's still like heavy for me. And that bass that I'm playing right there, that bass in that picture, Lemmy signed that. Lemmy signed that bass. I eventually had to retire it because I started rubbing the rubbing the autograph off, so I just put it away. But it was like, we're doing the Golden Gods Awards, and Dave Grohl's going to play, and just and you know how it is. Alice is getting up. Alice Cooper's singing with us. Rick Nielsen's going to get up with us, and it was just kind of like this. It was so surreal for me to just kind of like suddenly find myself just kind of like, in this world where I was kind of like, I was perfect. A year earlier, I was perfectly happy being in Las Vegas playing my friends, and and eating late night at the Pepper Mill on the Strip, and then going home. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, living in that world. And but then by 2012, we decided to record in classic Slash fashion. We're just sort of backstage, and he's going through his wardrobe case or whatever, and he just kind of casually says, like beside me, like I'm not even standing in front of me, just sort of says, "So I think we're going to do the new record with the band." And I go, "Like us?" And he goes, "Yeah." I go, "Oh, okay." And that was sort of the end of the conversation. He's not big on exposition or any sort of like, it's sort of like, and I go, "Oh, cool." And the next thing I know, we're in Hollywood recording a full record in 2012, and then we do it in 2014, and then in 2017, I guess the last one came out. So yeah, it's that was
been band records ever since then.
Yeah, I started playing with Slash in March, April of 2010. So that's over 10 years ago. So it's bizarre.
What rogue case or wardrobe case was it? Because I want to get Alice the same one, so he'll say the same thing to us. Because yeah,